Well, that was an unbelievably inspiring video and presentation, and Deshaun you just have to give him another round of applause. What's amazing to me is the first thing I was going to say, and I'm going to say, is thank you. And what I was going to say was thank you for all the times that you've come in on your days off to visit with patients that you've made a connection with. And it's unbelievable that's exactly what he does. That's powerful. And I want to thank especially nurses, because I'm sure that there's a lot of things you do that are unpleasant, that no one knows about, but you're doing something for a patient. And you have the unique privilege, and it is a privilege, to sometimes be the last best friend of a person. That's powerful. Be someone's last best friend. And I salute you, and I thank you with all my heart. We're going to focus on perspective. You know the old adage, the glass is half full or glass is half empty. Well, if you look at it from a different perspective, that's taking into account only liquid and solids. Every glass is full because there's another element, and that's air or gas. So a glass is full. But looking at it from a different perspective, you might say, what a beautiful glass. Think about that. Davis Finney is a well-known person in the Parkinson's community. He may not be well-known nationally, but he's well-known in the Parkinson's community. He was an Olympic medalist in cycling. He won more races than Lance Armstrong, and he was diagnosed with Parkinson's at 41 years old, same as me, and he's the same age as I am today. And he was doing a keynote speech for a Victory Summit. He put on Victory Summits across the nation. And my phone started blowing up with texts. And there were some friends of mine in the audience, and they said, he's talking about you, he's talking about you, he's talking about you. And I want to show that video of just that part of the video where he discusses what I've done for the Parkinson's community.
I'm talking about taking ownership ourselves and using something. Maybe we learned it today. Maybe we've been thinking about it. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's voice. I mean, there's a lot of ways with which we can improve our day-to-day life. And what I want you to do is to join with me and accept that as a challenge. I met a guy last week, John Baumann, who wrote a book called JohnDecideSuccess, and he's a Parkinson spokesperson. And he had come to one of our symposia, Victory Summits in Tulsa last spring. And it was funny because this guy walking towards me last weekend didn't look anything like John Baumann. He looked younger, fitter, and in all ways less symptomatic, and he just looked better. And he walks up, he says, "Hi, John Baumann." I'm like, whoa. And I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Well, I went to your Victory Summit, and I heard, and one thing stood out to me, and that was that I needed to challenge myself physically to improve my life." And I did. And he said, "I hired a personal trainer. I just got it. I day after day after day, I worked on my weaknesses, worked on my weak points, lost 25 pounds." And he goes, "I got it."
I came and spoke with you 4 years ago. And I want to tell you that at that time, I talked about exercise, but I wasn't doing it. I wasn't walking the talk. And since that time, I've made tremendous changes in my life. At the time I met Davis Finney, I lost 25 pounds. I'm down 40 pounds now. I'm as healthy as I've ever been in my life, including having Parkinson's. A side note to that is my cholesterol, my bad cholesterol went from 180 down to 100. And I also started eating better. And what the Parkinson's community is, they've talked a lot about, they've done clinical trials on exercise. And And you didn't have to tell me 10 years ago that exercise was important, that it would help my Parkinson's. But I've now had Parkinson's for 14 years. 14 years. Do you see my hand tremoring? See me walking slowly? Do you see me talking slowly? One of the things that Deshaun's story talks about is his own life-changing event. And the life-changing event of the girl who was in the accident. What's amazing to me is that people don't talk about life-changing events as something that happens to other people. But it's not, as I put up here, it's not who has to deal with a life-changing event, but how many. Think about in your own life how many life-changing events you've had. Celebrities, wealthy people, famous people, they've all had life-changing events. No one is immune from these. And they can be good and they can be bad. But I would say that every life-changing event has some percentage of bad and some percentage of good, no matter what it is. And that's the perspective I want to bring today. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It's the ones that are most adaptable to change. There'll always be change in people's lives. There's an American philosopher that talks about change as well. That'd be me. We have the ability to have an amazing life despite any life-changing event. I truly believe that, and that's what I try to demonstrate. And when I go on stage to talk to Parkinson's people, I basically say, look at me. You can do this. I can leave the stage now. Done. But I get back on stage because I like to talk, and that's what I do. The question that was asked to me was how being diagnosed with Parkinson's has spurred a life-changing journey that has brought more purpose than I could have ever imagined. Let me talk about Parkinson's disease, because what's interesting about it is if you ask someone with Parkinson's disease when they got the disease, they'll give you two answers. They'll say when they were diagnosed, an earlier date when they first had the symptoms or they started having symptoms. And that's interesting to me because there's a gap there. And you may have gone to several doctors in between. So it's important to recognize, and I bring awareness to Parkinson's, that Parkinson's is not well known. The diagnosis, the symptoms is not well known. I actually had my thumb operated on from a soccer injury, and my hand was tremoring afterward, after they took the cast off. And I went to see a hand doctor, and I said, the one that did the operation on my thumb, and I said, did you cut a nerve or something? He said, no, if I cut a nerve, your hand wouldn't be moving. Silence. Where was you need to see a neurologist? Didn't happen. I saw several other doctors, and finally one said, you need to see a neurologist. Well, that's telling me that there's not the widespread knowledge of the symptoms of Parkinson's. And the earlier you diagnose, the better off you're going to be, because they can start with treatment. So what I'm going to do is just give you a real short capsule on what Parkinson's symptoms are, and so that you can refer people to neurologists. What happens is, in your brain, there's a thing that makes dopamine, which is a pleasure center of the brain. And if that production of dopamine slows or is reduced and gets down to 20 to 30% of what's normal, you start showing the Michael J. Fox symptoms and Muhammad Ali symptoms. So when it starts getting to 80% and 70%, you will start showing some symptoms, but they're so subtle that you don't pick up on it. For example, you lose your sense of smell. It's a little strange, but you lose your sense of smell. And so I actually did lose my sense of smell very early, maybe in my 20s, but it didn't occur to me that was Parkinson's. And then I had more and more symptoms. First time that I can remember having a symptom was I was putting, and my putts were going that way. They weren't going straight. And it was the fine motor skills of my right hand. And my pro at the club just turned me around, and I putted lefty. And then I started playing, I liked to play softball, and I had no more zip on my throws. So very subtle things. But when I go through what finally got diagnosed, you'll see that there are things that you can see the symptoms and refer people to neurologists. And I put a snowflake up there because every person with Parkinson's is different. Once you've met one, you've only met one. Because we're all different. We advance at different speeds, different progressions, and that's important to know. Is there anything someone can do to reduce the chance of getting Parkinson's? Yes, there is. You can smoke, you can drink caffeinated coffee, and you can get gout. I'm serious. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing that. But there actually are studies that show that you're less likely to have Parkinson's if you smoke cigarettes, if you drink caffeinated coffee, and if you have gout, you have a high uric acid in your system. That blows me away. But I thought that was an interesting tidbit. I guess not. A doctor finally said to me, go see a neurologist. I walked into a neurologist's office. I handed her my paperwork. She said, you have Parkinson's disease. I said, slow down, time out. You haven't hit my knee with a hammer. You haven't looked up my nose. You haven't taken blood. She said, you've got all the classic symptoms, John. Your handwriting is illegible. I said, I'm a lawyer. My handwriting, of course, is illegible. She said, no, your handwriting is micro handwriting. So the paperwork, the intake paperwork is obvious to me. You have no expression in your face. You don't blink. Your arm doesn't swing when you walk. That's weird. When I walk, my arm didn't swing. And you have a tremor in your right hand. I said, well, I want a confirmatory test. And the only confirmatory test is an autopsy. So I backed off on that request. I decided I'm not going to go for the autopsy. But it turned out I had Parkinson's, and I had to do something about it. Emotional roller coaster. You talk about the symptoms. Michael J. Fox, what you see, him with dyskinesia, Muhammad Ali, one of the more famous people. Those are the things that are obvious. There's a whole list of other things that happen to you when you get Parkinson's or you have any chronic illness. And those need to be discussed as well because that's something that you need to go through. Knowledge is power. First one is shock. You're in shock. When I got Parkinson's, when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I saw white light. I was so blown away that I saw white light. And I'd only seen white light twice before in my life. I happened to be in 2 bus accidents. I was in a bus accident when I was 14 years old, and the bus tipped over. A lot of people were injured. I was in a bus accident in a Greyhound bus where the driver was killed. And I was trained EMT at the time and administered to him, but there was nothing I could do. So I saw white light 2 other times before I got Parkinson's. By the way, if you see me on a bus, don't get on the bus. But what do you think this is? Denial. I think that's funny. Denial. You end up in denial. No, it's not me. I'm only 41 years old. Of course I don't have Parkinson's. Depression. It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. You've got Parkinson's. Of course you're going to be depressed. You've got less dopamine in your brain, pleasure center. Of course you're going to be depressed. I remember the first time I learned what depression was. And let me give you the background on myself. I once, when I was 10 years old, I built a fort out of some extra fencing that we had, and I could only fit my best friend in with me and my brother. I didn't let him in, which was not nice. And he took offense to that and picked up a rock and hit me over the head with a rock. And there was blood everywhere, and I went to see my mother. My mother freaked out. We went to the hospital. I got 10 stitches. My brother tells the story. It was 2, but it was 10. My brother had to go to bed at normal time. Then my time to go to bed came and went, and then my sister went to bed, my older sister. I said, whoa. My parents had to keep me up in case there was a concussion. And they got out ice cream. And I had ice cream. And I said, this is the luckiest day of my life. I'm the eternal optimist. I see positive in everything. So depression, when it hit me, was quite a shock. I remember I was driving along and I went into the deepest, darkest hole I've ever been in. And I said, what is this? I didn't care if I lived or died. And I came out of it about 20 minutes later and I said, wow, that's what depression feels like. And then it happened again. And I said, I better go see the doctor. And I went to see my neurologist and I was prescribed some antidepressants. And I'm not shy about that. I'm not embarrassed about that. I feel like there's chemical things happening in my brain that I don't control, and I'm going to take my antidepressant, and I haven't felt it since. So what I say to Parkinson's people is, you need to go to your doctor and you need to talk about everything that comes up. And then finally, scared. I was scared. I was literally just scared stiff, because this is a big event, and I knew it was going to be a big event. Like I said, the iceberg, and let me talk a little bit more about the iceberg. So there's emotional issues that come up that you have to deal with, besides the physical issues. But you just have to keep moving forward. What's below the iceberg as well? Loss of identity, loss of self-esteem, loss of self-confidence, loss of self-worth, loss of earning potential. Those are things that didn't occur to me at first, but the things that I had to address. What are the hardest things about having Parkinson's? Who am I? I say John Baumann, General Counsel of this company. I no longer could say that. At 48 years old, on my 48th birthday, I made the decision that I didn't have the ability to continue to be the General Counsel of a company. I wasn't able to keep things straight. I wasn't able to keep as many balls in the air. I was falling asleep at board meetings. They don't call them board meetings for nothing. I was sticking a pin in my thigh to stay awake. I was having trouble getting up in the morning to go to work. And I decided that I wasn't doing the company any good as well as myself any good by staying and do that. So I was no longer General Counsel of the company. What do I do now? And that happens to a lot of people with Parkinson's or chronic illnesses or life-changing events. What am I going to do now? What's my identity? And you've got an identity void. I spoke to about 30 women from southern Indiana in a workshop, and they didn't have the funds to have a big room, so that we went into a hotel room and had a workshop. I never imagined myself with 30 women in a hotel room before. But it wasn't exactly the way I imagined it would be. Well, the first woman, I said, tell me about your Parkinson's. Tell me about yourself. And she said, I've had Parkinson's for 12 years, and she talked about that. And the second woman said, I've had Parkinson's for 8 years. And the third woman said, I had Parkinson's for 6 years. And I said, hold it, time out. You are not Parkinson's. You have Parkinson's. Parkinson's does not have you. Tell me about yourself. And the first woman said, I'm an architect. And there's a building in the skyline of Indianapolis that I helped design. And I'm very proud of that. The second woman said, I grow organic tomatoes, and they're prize-winning tomatoes. And the third woman went on from there. And it was like a cloud lifted, like the sun shined through. Because they talked about themselves. Just because you have a chronic illness, and your patients have chronic illnesses, you need to explain to them that they're still the same person they always were. They're still the same person they are. And that's important to know. Someday I'll be in a wheelchair. How will I handle it? I hope I handle it the same way I've handled my Parkinson's for the first 14 years. But I don't know. And that's something that scares me to death. Are there any positives about having Parkinson's? There are. Anything you can think of has positives. I get quoted. How many people get quoted? It's pretty cool. This is a brochure from Sarasota, where I live now. It's called the Neuro Challenge Foundation. They came out with a brochure, and they didn't tell me until after they did it, but they quoted me. To live well with Parkinson's, I say, don't settle for just living well. Instead, choose to live an amazing life with Parkinson's, or for that matter, any other life-changing condition. You can choose to live an amazing life with whatever comes your way, if you make that conscious choice. My wife and I, Bernadette, we've been married 4 years, so we were not married. I didn't even know her when I talked to you last time. By the way, how many people were here when I spoke last time? Good. You don't have a lot of turnover. That's great. I met her 3 months later. I met her in St. John, the Virgin Islands. I met her in January of 2012. We were married in February of 2012. Yes. When you know, you know. So we were invited to Malaysia. I would never have gotten to go to Malaysia. I would have not met these wonderful people that are running the support group in Malaysia had I not gotten Parkinson's. I got fit. Bernadette is an exercise enthusiast. She does Shaun T Insanity, if you've ever seen it. It's insane. She's jumping over logs and she's doing the Heisman position and doing all this stuff. And I was watching her. And she never pushed me. I just sat on the sidelines and said, wow, that's pretty cool. And one day I started doing it. I just did it. I didn't do it well, but I just started doing it. And I started doing it more, and I got better at it. And I started doing the treadmill, and then I started doing the elliptical machine, and I started doing a spin bike. And then we moved on to boxing fitness and kettlebell, and hot yoga, and I got fit. I unintentionally, as I said, lost 40 pounds. She was demonstrating to some friends the other day that my stomach is pretty flat, and maybe I don't have a 6-pack of abs, but I've got maybe a 2-pack of abs. So she punched me in the stomach 5 times just to demonstrate. I asked her not to do that again. I wrote a book. I always wanted to write a book. I wanted to write a book about being successful as a student, being successful as a professional or someone in the workforce. Thank goodness I got Parkinson's because it added a whole dimension to my book. Thank goodness I got Parkinson's. It's a little strange to say. I got to be on the news with Connie Leonard when Robin Williams took his life. What I basically said there was, I wish I had had a chance to talk to him before he made that decision. And that actually bared itself out. I was in San Antonio. You look for opportunities to what was just said, to go beyond. What did Russ just say? And then some. Finished a talk in San Antonio, and I was talking to this gentleman and his sister, it turned out. And I said, who has Parkinson's? And he said, my wife, but she couldn't come. She's in a wheelchair and she's at home. And I said, what are you doing right now? And he said, nothing, I'm just going home. I said, I got 3 hours for my flight. Muhammad won't come to the mountain, let's bring the mountain to Muhammad. Because he had told me that she was really looking forward to come and see me speak. So we got in the car and we didn't tell her, we drove over there and I spoke with her. And when they were out of the room, she said, I've thought a lot about suicide. And I said to her, well, my only thought on that is that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I see pictures on the wall. Who are they? She said, my grandchildren. I said, your brother told me, your husband told me that you were an English teacher. Have you taught them everything you want to teach them, your grandchildren? And she said, no. I said, then you've got more to do. And she agreed with me. That's a special moment. It was very special to me. I became the board chair of Make-A-Wish Foundation of Kentucky. And it gave me some unbelievable insights. I got to visit with a girl who was 5 years old, who had terminal cancer and had weeks to live. And I got to spend a little time with her. We sat on the floor and played a match game. She was amazing. She had a great memory. She had a great attitude. And I said to her, what do you want for your wish? And she said, I like Hello Kitty. I said, well, why don't we get you some Hello Kitty stuff? She said, you're going to take me into town? I said, well, where have you always wanted to go? She said, Gatlinburg. I said, well, let's go to Gatlinburg. She said, well, who can come with me? My mom's car only fits 3 people. I said, why don't we get you a limousine? She said, a limousine? Can we get in a Hummer limousine? Yeah, we'll get a Hummer limousine. How many people can we bring? We'll bring my uncle, all these people. So she went to Gatlinburg for 3 days. Now, what did that do for her? That gave her, and she passed away 3 weeks later. That gave her a memory that of more than hospitals and needles, and gave her a memory of something really good to take with her to the next life. And it gave her family a memory, the same thing, of not hospitals and needles and that sort of thing, but gave them something to hold on to. And I think that was very powerful. And it really touched my life. Perspective. My son once asked me, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? And I said to him, let me think about this. He said, Dad, you're always thinking about things. Why don't you just tell me? I said, well, I like to think about things and give you a thoughtful answer. I came back to him, I said, let me tell you what the best things that ever happened in my life. Holding you for the first time. Holding your sister for the first time. Marrying Bernadette. I said, what's the worst thing that happened in my life? Nothing. He said, it's got to be a worst. I said, there is nothing. Your sister didn't die. My daughter was born with a birth defect. She was a diaphragmatic hernia baby, for those of you that know what that is. She was put on ECMO. Just like Deshaun was someone that this girl wanted to get in touch with. There's somebody that I want to get in touch with that I've never been able to find. And I kind of like to keep her anonymous because I'd rather just feel that love towards every nurse that I ever meet. But she saw on the ultrasound the diaphragmatic hernia and brought the doctor in and had to point it out 3 times until he finally saw it. She saved my child's life, and I don't even know her name. She saved her life because the doctors were ready. And another child was born who they didn't see in another hospital that they brought into the neonatal ICU. And that baby didn't make it. My daughter just entered Eastern Kentucky University. She's a freshman. She has mild cerebral palsy. She doesn't let her stop her. Remove your blinders. Anyone see the movie Overboard? Goldie Hawn is rich. She thinks she's poor. Then she becomes rich again. She's talking to Roddy McDowall. Roddy McDowall is a famous actor. He didn't have to play the butler on a ship, but I think he played the butler because of a line that he got to give. One line. Goldie Hawn said to him, "I'm so sorry for the way she treated him." And then she said, "What am I going to do?" And he said to her, and this is the line, "Madam, we're all born with blinders on. We have a certain station in life. You have had the unique opportunity of having your blinders removed for a short period of time. What you do with that information is entirely up to you." Wow. How powerful is that? Whatever life-changing event you've gone through, you've had your blinders removed for a short period of time. What car you drive doesn't seem important anymore. How big your house is doesn't seem important anymore. Maybe your income doesn't seem important anymore. You've had your blinders removed. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. I'm an international speaker with these initials. People love initials. MD, PhD, RN. Well, these are my new initials. And it shows how unimportant Parkinson's is in my life. I'm an inspirational speaker who just so happens to have Parkinson's. I'm not a Parkinson's inspirational speaker. You as caregivers have a new initials behind your name as well. RTBDA. Rarely thanked, but definitely appreciated. Rarely thanked, but definitely appreciated. When I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I didn't say to my doctor, "Thank you so much. I appreciate you diagnosing me with Parkinson's. Now I can get treatment and I can get better." No, you're in shock. But I definitely appreciate her doing that. So when you're not thanked, just feel like you're thanked. and thank each other, so to speak. Tap into your strength. I don't usually quote people, but I had to quote this one. Regain your shout. Regain your shout. You know how when you were 10 or 12 years old, you walk into your house and you would say, "I'm home." You'd announce your presence. "I'm home." That's cool. No one had to be home, but you announced your presence. I say to people that have life-changing events, regain your shout. Somewhere along the line we lost that. Have the confidence. Have your own self-confidence. Muhammad Ali. I said that I am the greatest. I said that before I knew I was. Tap into your inner strength. Every one of you have that. When you have a life-changing event, tap into your inner strength. And the Serenity Prayer, I think, tells a lot. Know what you can change, know what you can't, and know the difference. And the word courage comes to mind. Create a plan. Create a plan. Like anything else in life, create a plan. Daily action items. Let me just give an example of me in 10th grade. I made the decision I wanted to be an attorney. I used to watch Perry Mason. I loved watching Perry Mason. Those of you that remember Perry Mason. One of the things you should know about Perry Mason is, if you're ever on Perry Mason, which you never will be, don't get on the stand with 5 minutes to go. Because he'll get you to confess that you did it. So run out of the courtroom. Don't be in the courtroom. Just, if you did it, don't be there. But I wanted to be a lawyer. I loved the fairness aspect of it. I loved the helping people. I loved the advocacy aspect of it. I loved trial work. I loved that sort of thing. So I had mediocre grades, and my parents had told me they couldn't pay for my college. So I made a decision. My action items were not graduate high school, graduate college, graduate law school, get a job. Those are not daily action items. When I'm talking about daily action items, what I'm talking about is things to do every single day to meet your goals. And for me, it was go to class every day. Don't miss a class. Study for every test. They seem elementary. Go to work. I worked at an International House of Pancakes 5 nights a week. And get something together for your resume. So I was class president and played soccer and played tennis and that sort of thing. So those were things I had to do every single day. When you have a life-changing event, you need to make a plan and you need to come up with daily action items. And I'll describe what my daily action items are. Reclaim your positive perspective. Let me tell you about that. Everyone knows what a placebo effect is. Placebo effect is when they do clinical trials, they take a sugar pill, and the people who take the sugar pill get the same benefit as people who are taking the new drug for the first 3 months. Placebo effect. What else is that but positive attitude? You think you're taking something that's helping you, therefore your brain tells itself you're getting better, and you get better. That tells me that having a positive perspective makes a difference. It somehow initiates something in the brain. My daily action items. I sometimes forget I have Parkinson's. And then it hits me because I start feeling bad. And I forget to take my medication. So I have to timely take my medication, and I've set up a system for that. Healthy diet. We are inundated with commercials in this society that don't allow us to get healthy. I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit. You need to fight that trend. I started eating healthy, and I got better, and I feel better. And I'll even say this because this is a health crowd. I had my first colonoscopy. And I was best in show. He told me I had the best whatever. And I attribute it to healthy diet. I had a lot of greens, a lot of vegetables. I don't eat certain things. I don't drink Diet Coke or regular Coke or any soda. I don't eat fried food. there's lots more to it, but I went cold turkey on those things. I just made the decision to stop. And I made the decision to start eating healthy. And I also learned that levodopa carbidopa, if you don't know about Parkinson's, is the gold standard. It's the best. It's the only drug that really works. It's 40 years old. It's only absorbed in the intestines, about this much in the intestines. Animal protein blocks the absorption of levodopa carbidopa. So you can't eat animal protein 2 hours before, 2 hours after. So Bernadette and I made the decision, if it's going to block the absorption and we don't know for sure if it's in there, let's just stop eating it. So we stopped eating meat. And that helped a lot with both the absorption of my medicine, the regular absorption of medicine, but also my health, my overall health. I felt better not eating animal protein. I felt better not having a lot of sugar. I felt better. Exercise beyond my comfort zone. I saw Tony Horton. I got to meet Tony Horton, another benefit of having Parkinson's. I went to a seminar that he was at. And he basically told the crowd, he said, who out there exercises three times a week? And people raised their hands. He said, who exercises 4 to 5 times a week? People raised their hands. And he said, not enough. Not enough. You need to exercise 6 to 7 times a week. Beyond your comfort zone. So I started doing that. And that's when I got healthy. Stay engaged, mental stimulation. This is critically important for people with Parkinson's because you may not be able to do your job anymore. So you've got to fill the void. And you've got to come up with things that keep you mentally engaged because there are some cognitive effects to Parkinson's. That's the way I looked. Now, I'll tell you something interesting about this picture. I'm sure you don't know this, but I was in the faculty senate of the University of Louisville College of Business when I was teaching there. And somebody from the faculty senate gets to sit in the center of the scorer's table at every U of L basketball game. And I said to one of the other people at the faculty senate, I said, how did that come about? They said, we voted on it. I said, who voted on it? The faculty senate. I said, you voted, somebody put forth the proposition that you get to, that one seat is reserved for someone from the faculty senate in the middle of the scorer's table at U of L basketball games? I said, yep, someone made that proposition. I said, how was it voted? Unanimously. So I got to sit. I didn't have any function. I couldn't have any liquids because there was TV and radio next to me. But I show this picture because that's the way I looked. I was bloated. I was not healthy. That tells it all. Maintain your sense of humor. I did not know before I got Parkinson's that I dressed like a Smurf. I didn't do this intentionally. This is what I was wearing that day in New York City, and I ran into a Smurf, and that's what... One of the things that happens to me from time to time is I get dystonia. And dystonia is very painful. My left foot, it's only my left foot, becomes a claw. It turns inward. It's awful. And the first time it happened, we were in Venice, Italy, on a bridge. And I said, what is this? Of course, it had something to do with my Parkinson's. What is this? I said to my wife, this is awful. My foot is cramping up. I can't walk anymore. She said, sit down on the curb. I sat down on the curb. And we waited a couple seconds, and then she took my baseball hat off of my head and said, hold this for a second. Let's make some money while you're down there. I can't make this stuff up. I also used to play poker with a bunch of friends once a month. And I was a terrible poker player. I would lose every week. Well, when I got Parkinson's, I would stop taking my medication a couple days before. And I had a blank expression. And I started winning at poker. No one could tell when I got that fourth queen. And they banned me from the game. They felt that was cheating. And then there's always the big sunglasses picture. Do you believe that everyone has a purpose? Do you believe that everyone has a purpose? Dr. Wayne Dyer just passed away. And I like to listen to Wayne Dyer speak. And he talks about quantum moments. And those are moments in your life when you go from self-interested to other-interested. And they're vivid, and they're surprised, they're enduring, they're benevolent. And you need to pay attention to those moments when they happen. And sometimes they're life-changing events. I say uncover your purpose because your purpose is there. You just need to uncover it. Michael J. Fox. Do you think Michael J. Fox would have raised hundreds of millions of dollars for Parkinson's research had he not gotten Parkinson's? Would I be up on stage right now talking to you if I hadn't got Parkinson's? No. I'd be in an office somewhere reading contracts with the door closed. I wouldn't be teaching, I wouldn't have written a book, and I wouldn't be helping others. Jim Valvano has a famous ESPY speech where he talks about never give up, don't ever give up. He was 6 weeks away from dying, and he came up on stage, and he put together one of the best speeches I've ever heard. One of the things he said was, if every day I laugh, I think, and I come to tears, whether from sadness or joy, I've had a heck of a day. I truly believe this. I love this quote. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. Be that touch, be that smile, be that kind word, be that listening ear, be that honest compliment. Whenever the seeds of self-pity start creeping into my mind, I think about people that are less fortunate than myself, that have it harder, that have it worse than myself. Discover your joy. My former joys were playing softball and being a trial attorney. Those days are gone. But I have other joys. My family, my friends, especially the many friends I've made in the Parkinson's community, social interaction, and inspiring others to help themselves. That's Katie. That's the neonatal ICU baby that was in there for 60 days on ECMO. And that's my son Joseph and my father. Believe in yourself and your team. Ted Williams, if you recognize him, he was interviewed by a reporter when he was 75 years old. And the reporter asked him, how do you think you'd do against today's pitching? He said, I'd bat about 250. And the reporter was taken aback. He said, you mean the pitchers today are that much better than the pitchers in your day? Because he was the last person to bat 400. And he said, how do you think I'd hit today? I'm 75 years old. He still thinks he could hit 250. That's belief in yourself. And then the 2004 Boston Red Sox, after 85 years, and what's telling about that, if you remember, is they played the Yankees in the American League Division Final. They were down 3-0. They lost the third game at home, 19-8. Nobody had ever come back from 3 games down. And one of the players said it was on video, said to the news place, he said, don't let us win game 4 because we've got Pedro Martinez going in game 5, Schill going in game 6, which is Kurt Schilling, and anything can happen in game 7, and it happened. They didn't lose belief in themselves. And the famous phrase was, why not us? Well, be a part of a team, and you are a part of a team in Norton Healthcare, and believe in your team, because it's important to believe in your team. No less than 18 players had to make a difference in those 4 games that they won in order for them to win the series. Live in every moment. I was the last person admitted to my law school class. I'm proud of that. I got a call on a Friday afternoon, and the person said, this is whoever from Cornell Law School. And I said, yeah, right. Quit kidding with me, Brad. And they said, no, this is really Cornell Law School. I don't know who Brad is. They said, we've got a spot for you. And I was already enrolled in BC. And I said, when does classes start? And it was a Friday, and they said, Monday. I said, well, where will I live? They said, we have a dorm, but it's full. I said, well, how long do I have to decide? They said, this phone call. I said, well, it was my dream to go to an Ivy League school, so yes, I'll be there. But I want to talk to the dean. He said, anytime you want to talk to the dean, it's fine. I talked to the dean. I said, you have motivated me. I will end up in the top quartile of the class. She said, John, that's not important. I said, it's important to me. And that was inspiring to me. When she gave the orientation speech, she said, every one of you have been in the top 2% of everything you've ever done. Half of you will be in the bottom half of your class. It's a statistical certainty. And she every day I was at Cornell Law School, I lived in the moment. I was in awe of the tradition, of the Ivy League covered buildings, of the tradition of spending time with very intelligent students, listening to professors. I lived in the moment every day for 3 years. You need to live in the moment. And I live in the moment now. I'm enjoying the heck out of this conversation. You may have to reinvent yourself. You may have to reinvent yourself. And some of your patients may have to reinvent themselves. These are some of the success principles I write about in my book. And you can read them yourself. Have faith. Have faith in yourself, have faith in others, and have faith in your higher power. You can influence your experience with an adverse life-changing event. You have the power to influence it. I'm a living example of that. Quick story about Muhammad Ali and Tori McClure. Tori McClure, I don't know if you know this, she was the first woman to row successfully across the Atlantic Ocean. She failed the first time. And she tells the story of going to a luncheon where Muhammad Ali was, the only seat left was across from Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali, when she went to introduce herself to him, he said, I know who you are. Do you want to be known as the woman who almost crossed the Atlantic Ocean? She had no plans to try it again. And those 12 words inspired her to go ahead and make the trip and make it work. That's powerful. You don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. I had no other choice. I had to get healthy, I had to exercise, I had to eat right. Don't have to have heart disease or heart attack to stop eating fatty meat. Don't have lung cancer to stop smoking cigarettes. Make the decision to get healthy without having those things happen. Here's the tangible takeaways. Remove your blinders. Just keep moving forward. Regain your shout. Tap into your inner strength. Uncover your purpose. Discover your joy. Believe in yourself and your team and live in every moment. If you do those things, you'll have a happy, healthy life. Thank you very much.